Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 205 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron. So glad that you're here with me today. Today, we are talking to Kati Gardner, and she is a delight. We talk about planning for writers. We talk a little bit about planners for those of you with a planner addiction like we have. We talk about how she wrote a book and then put it away and rewrote it. And I'm always fascinated by that process. I've actually done it once myself, and I always forget that. And she's just so great to talk to. We go on little writing related tangents, and I loved her energy. So you will enjoy this show. What's going on around here? Well, I think I mentioned our dog is feeling better, so we're not leaving the country immediately. It's fantastic. You might even hear her snoring. Over that shoulder is the little dog, and the bigger dog is behind me, possibly snoring and feeling better. So that's fantastic. We're still moving forward with going to New Zealand. It's just that we get to take our time, and that's a nice feeling. What else? Oh, I finished my copy edits for Hush Little Baby and turned those in. So that book is off my desk entirely. I will probably have to look at proofs, and I really hate looking at proofs. I never see, and I am not a person who can see my own typos. So when they ask you to check the proofs to make sure the proofreader caught the errors that the copy editor misses, and yes, the copy editor will miss things. And guess what? The proofer will also miss things. No book is perfect when it is printed, unfortunately. And the author's job is usually to look at that again and check for errors, and I never see them. So that will be the last time I touch it, but I swear to you, I honestly I barely look at it. I barely touch it. Just can't stand it. I am at the point of not being able to stand this book, and that's great. That is exactly where I should be when I send it out forever. I really won't see it again until it comes out in May, I believe. I think that is the month it comes out. So that will be fun. And in the meantime, I've been working a little bit on You're Already Ready, and working quite a lot of bit on planning my NaNoWriMo novel, which is going to be super fun to write. I wrote quite a bit last year in NaNoWriMo, but I actually didn't end up ever using those words anywhere. I kind of threw those out. So this year I would like to have Nano be something that I can use and that I have really planned for. So that is fun. I wanted to tell you something else. Oh, if you're watching on the video, I have wet hair, and I just have to say that for the very first time, I crossed the bay in my car, drove through San Francisco out to Aquatic Park in the middle of the day, and went swimming in the bay there. I have been swimming a couple of times here in the East Bay over in Berkeley, and I find it feels a little treacherous and scary to me, because where I go, you can jump off the dock, but there's no way back up the dock unless you pay the $18 and swim with this swimming club on Sundays. And they're all very, very serious. Capital S for serious swimmers. And I am not a serious swimmer. I am a paddler who swims really hard for a while, and then I get tired. And then I bob around like a little sea otter. And over at Aquatic Park, there are always people swimming. It is also 10 degrees colder than it is over here in the East Bay, but that's okay. I have a wetsuit, even though the people who swim there on a daily basis, the people who are members of the 250-year-old swimming clubs there, even though they mock the people with wetsuits, no, I put my feet in that and my hands in that and my head in that, and I thought, I am so glad my body is not feeling this cold. And for the very first time today, I really appreciated the wetsuit. Before, I've always thought, is it really helping? Oh, it is helping. It is helping a lot. So I had a wonderful time doing that. And it was pushing a boundary for me to go swimming by myself over in San Francisco, where all of these excellent swimmers are swimming. And it was wonderful. I feel really good. And I am nice and toasty warm now. So I am headed into Rachael Says Write, because it is Thursday afternoon. It is so fun to write with these people. So if you have considered joining us for Rachael Says Write, you can always look at, where is it? RachelHerron.com/Rachael Says Write, I believe is where I put it. And we write together for 2 hours and I haven't gotten any writing done yet today, as has been happening lately on Thursdays, because I know that I have this solid 2 hour block to write with other people on Zoom. And for some reason, I always write so much more there than I do any other place or any other time. I just like writing with companionship. So I'm headed there now, and I will let you head right over into the interview with Kati. Please enjoy. I hope you're enjoying your own writing. Drop me a line somewhere, anywhere, and tell me how you are doing. And I wish you really, really excellent, happy writing. We'll talk soon. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome to the show today, Kati Gardner. Hello, Kati.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I am thrilled to have you. We were introduced by the amazing Becca Syme, who everybody knows.
Yeah.
I'm Becca Nation all the way, right?
I told her I was all in. I was like, I am all in on this.
Are you a member of her Patreon, by the way?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that thing she sent out today was amazing. Amazing.
So good. Like I have to read some of that stuff a couple of times
I know, because
because
she's so smart.
yeah, and I'm
And that stuff
but
was
like
so deep.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I only got to read it once and it was while I was sitting at the salon or at my hairdresser's house. So I need to like sit down again and go through it because it just always I'm always like, yes, why didn't I think of this is where I'm at most of
I
the
know,
time.
because we're busy not thinking of that, and she is.
No.
But you know what? We're not here to talk about her today. We're here to talk about you. So let me give you a little bit of an introduction. Kati Gardner is a recovering actor, wife, and mom. She is a childhood cancer survivor and amputee who writes books about disability and kissing. And I had to hurriedly hit record because you were like, I just want to write one about one-legged girls and kissing.
That's it.
That's
That's
all
it.
I
That's
want.
all I want to do.
Good. Fabulous. Continuing, originally from Atlanta, she now lives and writes in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's the author of Brave Enough and Finding Balance, which is coming out soon. You can find her at Twitter at author Kati or at Instagram at author Kati Gardner. When is Finding Balance coming out?
Tuesday.
Oh my
The 20
gosh.
Yeah, September 29th.
Oh, so by the
Yeah.
time this is out, it will be out and people will be able to
Yeah.
grab it. And we were just talking about how you won the cover lottery with your publisher. They are gorgeous books, and I love
Mm-hmm.
that. So talk to us a little bit about your writing process. Like, how is it your mom? How do you get everything done?
I don't. Like that's just I was talking with some other we call ourselves the overworked writing moms and I was talking with them and like and we use the Nora Roberts analogy with the glass bubbles and or
No,
the
no.
glass balls.
Oh, yes, I've heard this. Can you say it again if you can remember it?
If I can remember it, like the some balls you're juggling all of the balls,
Yes.
and some are glass, and if they drop, will break, and some are plastic and they won't break. And so it's figuring out which ones you can drop, which ones are
Yeah.
plastic, and which ones are glass. It turns out that our children are glass all the time, always.
This is why I have
So
no children.
there's no dropping of the children. And my kids are older now. Like when they were younger and demanded just constant supervision in the please don't eat that because you will die phase, it was harder. They're older now. Now I spend a lot of my time going, no, you've spent enough time on the iPad. Let's find something else that's creative to do. And now because we are where we're at in North Carolina, we're virtual schooling this year.
Mhm.
And so I find myself, I like to say I'm the bell system. So I'm constantly like, okay, now it's time for you to go to literacy and you need to go to math and those kind like I'm the bell system and I'm IT. So if the Wi-Fi
Oh,
goes out, I'm the one that has to fix it. Or if somebody can't get into their Google Meet or, those types of things, that's my job.
that sounds
Um,
so difficult. Like, and I will just say that we live right by a high school, and it's been really strange because it's been, we haven't had high school in a long time, but the bell
yeah.
system, they never turned off. They've never turned it off in
Oh,
April. So it's been going, it went all summer, and it rings every 45 minutes or whatever. And then it rings the 5 and the 10. And I'm like,
yeah.
bells are very busy things. So you're
They,
constantly doing
yeah.
something.
I'm a busy person with the bell system. My older daughter is in middle school. So like I can set her alarms on
Yeah.
her various devices and it reminds her of what class she needs to go to.
Yeah.
My younger one is only in elementary school. So
Yeah.
it just requires are you actually in class? Like it just a little more reminding. And I'm a former educator. So it's one of those things, like I find my teacher voice coming back, which I haven't used in 11 years. So I'm like, that it's a little weird because I'm using it on my children.
Yeah.
And I taught middle school. So now that I have a middle schooler, like it's all of those things. It's fun. It's fine. What I have learned also with my writing is that it has to be a priority. Like it can't be something that I say, okay, I'll get to this later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find what I found eventually, like when the pandemic first hit in April, I couldn't write anything. I just sat there and I would stare at screens and I would doom scroll like we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Lots of doom scrolling. And that was fine because I didn't have any contracts. I didn't have any deadlines. I was literally just writing stuff for me for the first time in a really long time, which was really lovely. And so I just didn't. I had finished a draft, a really rough, terrible draft in January. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let that sit. I'm just going to think on it. I'm just going to let it do its thing.
That sounds healthy.
And yeah. And then, so I did. And in, I guess, May, I was like, you know what? You know that manuscript, not the one you just finished, but that one you shelved like a year ago? Go get that and rewrite it from scratch. And that's what I did.
Ooh.
So I rewrote that one from scratch. And I kept thinking, okay, I think it's going to top out at 50,000 words, which is really short for, a YA novel. And then I was like, no. It ended up, it's like at 82,000 right now and that's with a round of revisions. And I was like, I was supposed to cut words, not add.
And that's pretty long for a YA, right?
Well, especially because I write contemporary.
Yeah.
Like they want contemporaries between 60, 80 if you're like, Sarah Dessen or Angie Thomas. Like they can get away with longer novels. I just can't right now. So I know of some things that I'm already going to cut. It's with my critique partners right now. So I'm trying not to touch it, which is really hard to do because I know the things, like once some of the things you're going to fix,
you feel it in your gut. Yeah.
But for right now, I'm really trying to leave it alone. One of the things that I leaned into a lot when I was writing that was my activator strength. That's my number 2 strength.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's my number 10.
It's my number 2. No, it's my number 1. Activator's number 1. Number 2 is woo. That's it. And so number 1 is activator. I leaned into that really hardcore in that I got up before everybody else in my house and I wrote. Like I didn't do anything else. I made coffee because you can't function without that. So I got up, I made myself a cup of coffee and I wrote. And I would usually get about an hour and a half before anybody else got up. And I found that was enough time. Like I didn't need any more time from the day to get the words that I needed. And I also, I discovered, so Brave Enough was a NaNoWriMo novel. Yay! I wrote that. Yeah, which is coming up. So I'm big on those. Do that. Do NaNoWriMo. Really but I didn't like prep for it at all. I didn't know that I was a plotter when I was writing Brave Enough, which is why it took me 4.5 years to write it. That and I had a baby and moved. So those
small things,
the 2 most stressful things you can put on yourself. Exactly. So it took me a really long time to just finish the initial draft of Brave Enough. But it's because I didn't know where I was going. Like there are some parts that I cut out of that novel that like belong somewhere else.
Not in that book.
Not in that book. The original draft, I think, was like over 100,000 words. And the printed version is like 65. So yeah.
Wow.
But what I learned when I wrote Finding Balance is that I am a plotter. Like not only am I a plotter, I need to know what I'm going to sit down and write each day before I sit down. Like, so I take my day planner. I am a planner person.
I am a planner person too.
I Frankenplanned an Erin Condren. So I took several Erin pieces from different Erin Condrens and then rebound them so that it's like exactly what I want.
I've been deeply into the iPad planners lately.
I just
It's mind blowing.
we need to talk about this off the podcast because I got a new iPad and the iPad pencil for my birthday. And so I've been like looking at these like digital planners and I'm trying to figure out how to make it work.
Let's talk about it on air because people love this too. This is a podcast about program. And I will just tell you that I did so much research. I use the Good Notes app.
Okay, I just got that.
I think. Perfect. And then you go to Etsy and you can look at all the digital planners that work for Good Notes, but most of them work for Good Notes, but I love the Emma Studies.
Okay.
Emma Studies on Etsy. She does the best, like, you know, I'll just like, oh, you can't really see my screen, but it's weird on the screen, but like I keep my journal, my gratitude list, my completed list, tons of different planning things, lots of things to color in, and you can pull stuff from anywhere on the internet. I'm obsessed. I'm like, I've been using this for maybe a month and a half, and this particular Bojo now has like 75 pages in it just because I'm constantly writing on it. Pro tip, get a matte screen protector for iPad itself, because then it makes the pencil feel a little bit more realistic and you're not just drawing on glass.
Okay. That's because that is my other problem is my handwriting is terrible. So like
Good Notes will be able to read it. Being able to instantly search your notes. Like I was doing something with Becca the other day and I was looking for the word impulsivity and I just been scratching notes and I just searched impulsivity and it went to it. It could read it.
Oh, that's game changer right there. Okay. I'm going to do that.
Okay. So going back though to your planner.
Yes. So I would write down so on Sunday afternoons, I would take out, okay, so this is what I wrote this week. And this is what I want to write next week. Ooh. And I would write down each day, like, okay, you're going to write this scene. So I was working on a heist novel. So like, okay, this day she's going to steal the brooch. And
you actually know what's coming up on the days that you're writing.
On the day that I'm writing it. And that helped me because then I wasn't going to sit there because I was getting up so early. I wasn't going to sit there in the dark and go, okay, where do I start? Like I knew exactly where I was going to start. Sometimes I would leave myself like parenthesis in the document itself that would be like, okay, this is what you need to start here.
Yeah.
But I found that if I wrote it down even a week before, it helped. Sometimes because I do believe that, you know, like you discover these things as you're writing and that you don't want to ever ignore that. So some days I would get off, but it'd be like, okay, so I'm at this point now, but I still need to get to this point over here. Here's the way I was doing it originally. Can I still make this work? And that kind of thing. So still having those notes was really helpful for me.
I have such a happy, healthy jealousy of that. I would love to be able to do that. I always want to be a plotter. I want to be a plotter so bad.
I thought for a really long time that it would ruin it for me. That like I would like, oh, well, you know the ending. But I write romances essentially. Like, yeah.
So we always know the ending.
I mean, they're going to end up together and I'm the kind of writer I am. Like I write about teens with disability and chronic illness, but the rule is nobody dies. So like,
God.
Yeah. So like, I know two things already going into this. Like there's going to be a happy ending and nobody's going to die. So like those things are already solved for me.
Yeah.
It's fine if I, you know, plot it out. Cause originally when I first started writing years and years ago, like when I was writing fanfic, I would be like, oh, I don't want to know the ending because then I won't be interested anymore. And really what I was losing interest in was either the fandom itself or the story. Like I had written myself into a hole of some sort and I was just bored with what was happening. I am notorious for putting my two love interests together too quickly. Yeah. Because I want to write all of the sweet kissy things. Like that's what I want to do. I just want to write like makeout scenes all day long. And I did an Instagram live with a reader of mine this week, and she was like, will you just write a book with all of these like kissing scenes that you want to write and just put them like, and I was like, that is an anthology waiting to happen.
A Valentine's Day anthology.
Yeah, it's just right there. All the first kisses right there. So I'm notorious for that. So I have to go back and watch my pacing. And so whenever I was a baby writer, and I say that because I was like 14, 15, writing my General Hospital fan fiction.
I love that.
Oh, I loved it so much. It was the best. And I tell everybody, it's one of the biggest advice I give for writers. I was like, if you have a fandom that you are even moderately passionate about, go write fanfic. I was like, you're going to get instant notes. So it's instant
Wow,
gratification from
yeah.
the internet at large. And you're playing in somebody else's sandbox. So you're not having to worry necessarily about character development. You're just learning how to write a story,
That's so
the arc
smart.
of it, and how it goes. That's what I
Yeah.
tell all, I was a teacher. And so whenever I would teach writing, that was one of the things I would do is I would have my kids, like we would read a book or they would read a book. And I was like, if you don't want to take the one that we've just read in class for our novel study, take one that you're really passionate about, but now you're going to write some original fiction doing some fanfic.
They must have loved that.
I mean,
It's
I was still
writing.
a teacher. Yeah. Some of them were really into it and some
Yeah.
of them not so much. And I was the theater teacher too. So like they were, like they liked me for the most part, as long as I wasn't teaching creative writing.
But otherwise you were the artsy one, and they were the artsy
Yeah.
kids. Oh. So what is your biggest challenge when it comes to writing?
Well, I rush. I'm terrible at pacing. I have to really slow down my pacing.
Is that something you fix in revision or while you're going along?
I try to fix it while I'm going along, because otherwise you end up having to put so much more in the story. Like if you've rushed it and then it can throw off your whole timeline.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I tend to write, I want to write romances, like that's what I want to write, but it always ends up that my stories have a lot of extra layers to them. And so I have to be careful, because if I rush that romance, it's going to push those other layers and make a big ripple. And then it's just a lot to fix.
And we don't want that happily ever after until the end.
Yeah, that's right.
No. Yeah.
It has to, you have to work for it. There has to be some payoff.
I maintain that writing contemporary romance of any kind is the hardest writing to do. I write in 5 genres, and it is so impossible because you're keeping 2 very good people who deserve to be together apart for real, organic, conflicting reasons. And it's so hard.
It took me probably 2 years to come up with, I always knew I wanted to write Jace and Mari are my lead characters in Finding Balance. And I always knew that I wanted to write their story, but I had a really hard time. So I write this particular series is told in dual point of views.
Love it.
I had a very hard time coming up with Jace's storyline because I was making him, he didn't go anywhere. He was just always a nice guy. He had nowhere to go.
No character arc.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, he's gonna have to be mean. Like he's gonna to
And
grow.
So hard
and
to
I
write.
didn't want him to be mean. Like I love Jace because so the other thing that I did is I wrote Out of Sequence. Brave Enough is actually a sequel to Finding Balance, not the other way around.
Oh, how interesting.
Finding Balance takes place about 6 months beforehand. But because the 2 stories are completely separate,
right,
outside of overlapping characters. So you don't have to read either of them in order.
But in the future, when both are out, will people mostly read Finding Balance first and then Brave Enough?
You don't have to do it. Like, I guess they could.
Yeah.
Like, ideally, that would be the way they would do it.
That's so interesting.
I didn't mean to write it that way. It's just the way it happened. But I always knew I was going to, so like knowing that and knowing how much I liked who he ended up as, it was really hard to go back and be like, now I have to make you a jerk. And you have to do jerky things. But also, like, one of the things that I have tried to do really hard in Finding Balance is there's this kind of, especially in pop culture and in media, that cancer kids are saints. Like that we are wise beyond our years and we're here to teach all of these things. And one of the things I wanted to kind of play against that idea. And so like I had to kind of make him a jerk and he had to grow from it, but he's still a teenager and teenagers are jerks sometimes and they make bad decisions. So that was really hard for me. It took, like, I found an early draft of it this week and I was like, oh, he was so nice throughout this whole thing. Huh.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a good answer. What is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
Writing the end. There is nothing like that feeling. Yes. Like when you have, especially like if it's been Like if something, I have a hard time with third acts. Third acts are really hard for me. So slogging that, I can write the first 2 acts in what feels like 2 weeks.
That's so funny. So many people have a bigger problem with that middle portion.
I have a really hard time with third acts, usually because
Yeah.
I'm tying all of those loose ends up.
Yeah.
And I am coming off of writing a heist novel where there's a lot of pieces that have to come together. I don't know if this heist novel will ever be published. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's so fun. I have a goal of writing a heist novel at some point. Sounds so fun.
It was super fun, but there's just a lot that you have to tie up at the end. And so writing that at the end of that, oh, that feels real good. And it just takes so long to get there. Like you have to really work to get to that, and what, some days it's 500 words that you're writing. And some days are, for me on a really good day, I think the most I've ever written was like 4,000 in one day. Mm-hmm. And that's because I'm parenting.
Yes.
Yes. I have other friends that can churn out 10,000 and
I don't understand those people.
I don't either. They can do it. I'm always like, how does your, like my brain turns kind of mushy after
mine does too. Where is your intellection?
I forget where. I would have to look on my list. Yeah, I forget.
Some of us have to think real hard. We can't just throw down 10,000 words. The reservoir will be empty. Do you do the same thing that I do, which is I kind of wind up into typing the end. I'm like, here come my fingers. T-H-E.
Fun. And I take pictures of it, and I'm like, and I post it on all of my social media. I'm like, I don't know whatever is going to happen to this, but look what I did. I did it again. Like it's the fact that I did it again. Like it's not, like
it's one of those things. It doesn't go away. Like other things in writing, you kind of get used to. In publishing, you kind of get used to. But writing the end, I don't think you ever get used to.
Oh, it's so good. That's my favorite part.
That's so joyful. Can you share a craft tip of any sort with us?
So I was thinking about this, and I think that you never waste writing. So like even if it's something that you're going to cut later, or that maybe isn't pushing, because in YA we are always working to push the story forward. There's just not a lot of room for moments that aren't moving the story forward. Like one of the scenes I know I'm going to have to probably cut for my heist novel is a makeout scene in a pantry. It just doesn't move the story forward. I will save it and put it somewhere else. But there is never any wasted writing. Like it either helps you with your character or finding the setting. There's never any wasted writing.
You have to write it to get there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking about is it's okay to not write. Like currently, since my CPs have that heist novel and are looking through it, I've been playing with that manuscript that I wrote in January a little bit, which I think is going to be another completely new write, like just same themes, but a completely different novel than what I wrote. And it's okay to just let it sit there and kind of rumble in your head and to think a lot about it before you ever write anything down. I remember years ago, I read Meg Cabot's blog, and she talked about how she knew almost the entire story before she ever wrote anything down. And she would just think so often on it. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And one of the things that I tried to do early in the quarantine was break some of my phone addiction and some of my doom scrolling that I was doing. And so to do that at night and in the mornings, whenever I'd be like getting up and I wasn't writing, if I was just getting up, instead of going right to my phone, which I try not to do anyway, I would think about what story I was working on. Like with the current thing that I'm thinking about a lot for this story that I'm going to rewrite is, when was her first heartbreak and what was it? I mean, she's 16, so there's not a whole lot of years, but heartbreak can be more than a romantic heartbreak. Like I think right now it's that when her new stepdad takes his daughter to the daddy-daughter dance and doesn't take her, like that was the first time that her heart broke.
That's really good.
And so just like thinking, and it may never come into that story, but knowing that about her tells me a lot of things.
So let me back up for a moment, because I know that people will be interested in this. This is something that scares people a lot. I have done it once, and I couldn't even tell you how I did it. But taking a book that you've written and then completely rewriting it, what does that look like? How much are you referring back to the book, or is it just all in your head and now you are reframing new words on the page? What does that
So
do?
for me, so like for the heist novel, it had a completely different plot than
Wow.
than what it ended up with. And I think the reason
And a
is,
heist is very plot heavy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was, I think it was one of those things where I was trying to talk about how a team had formed without ever forming the team. So like, and I guess it's the same thing I did with Brave Enough and Finding Balance. I was writing a sequel before I wrote the first book.
Oh, yeah.
And so I needed to go back, and I mean, and I shelved it. I was like, you know what? This book is just going to be put away for right now. This is not the book I meant to tell right now. And that's fine. But I loved the idea. I'm spilling all of the secrets. It's a debutante heist novel. And I loved
Take my money.
Yeah, I just
Take my
loved
money.
the idea of debutantes stealing things, and they're all like there's always a disability component. So like my lead character has a rotation plasty, which is a really interesting amputation, and sometimes called a partial amputation. I'm going to try to explain it as best I can without visuals. Google it first. It's rotation plasty. But what they do is they remove the part of the bone that is infected, which is the knee, and then they turn the foot around and shorten it and connect it to the femur. So the foot now acts as your knee. So you have a foot, it's on backwards, and it's your knee. It's amazing.
Humans are amazing, and the doctors who thought of this are amazing.
And so I've worked with teenagers that have this, and I was like, these girls need to see somebody that looked like them in a book.
Yes.
And so I just really loved the idea of a teenage debutante with a disability stealing and just walking out, like pocking it in her prosthesis and walking out. And so I wanted that so much. The book that I had been writing, I had a finished draft. But I was forming the team. The team was already formed, and the stakes were high, but it just never found the footing that I wanted it to have. And so I kept thinking on it, and I went back to several of my favorite craft books. Story Genius infuriates me, but it helps me a lot.
I feel exactly the same way.
I went back to Story Genius, and I did a lot of that pre-writing stuff.
Yeah.
And it was super helpful. Because what I could never figure out, so the lead character in this novel, her name is Lila Beth, because she's Southern. I could never figure out why Lila Beth started stealing to begin with. And it helped me figure that out a lot. And so that, I sat down and rewrote the entire novel. And I love it so much more than what I had written before.
And are you referring to anything? Are you referring to notes from that other book? You ever look at that other book, or is it just a way?
It's a way. Like, and it could maybe be a sequel.
Yeah.
Someday, because the team is together in that novel.
Yeah.
But I think I really like companion novels more than I like direct sequels. So if I did tell another story in that world, it would probably be one of the other girls' stories.
That's so cool.
So I mean, it would involve a rewrite as well, but I could take more of that and rewrite it. And
as you say, nothing is wasted.
And I went into it thinking, well, I may not be able to use that this time, but that doesn't mean I can't use it later. So with the novel that I'm thinking on right now, like I wrote the first kiss today because it came to me, and I was like, I'm going to write this down while I'm sitting here for 15 minutes and not wasting time, but wasting time.
Yeah.
This one I have a theme more than I have anything else. Like, I know the theme of the novel, which is really unusual for me. And I think for, I don't know, maybe other writers too. I don't typically have a theme that I want to get across. But this one, I have a pretty hard theme that I want to get across. And I'd written something, and I never really could, the stakes never felt high enough. It never felt serious enough. And then I realized that the stakes for this particular character are more internal. There doesn't have to be a lot of external stakes in this particular one. And so I'm gonna pull out Story Genius at some point, and I'm gonna do a lot of that pre-writing, because I feel like it really helps me figure out what all of the stakes are.
Yeah, I need to revisit that. It is a really good book. What thing in your life affects your writing in a surprising way?
In a surprising way, thing in my life. Well, I mean, my kids do, but that's not a really surprising way. I think this is for anybody that menstruates. My hormonal cycle affects my writing.
Amen.
And it was surprising when I put all of the pieces together. And I was like, I am so much more creative when I am ovulating than I am when I am dead. Like, I am barren. I can't do anything the week before I get my period. As soon as I start my period, I'm better. But like that week before, I don't sleep. Yeah. My attention span is really gone. And that was really surprising to me. Like, I just never
said that. I think that a lot of women don't think that through. And I don't know if I've ever really thought that through in terms of creativity. I've thought it through in many other ways, but it really rings true with me too.
Yeah. Wow. So I am, and part of it is just general energy levels. Since I'm disabled, my spoons are different than, somebody who's abled. And I just have to really respect when my body and my brain are like, you can't do this today. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to feel bad about myself for not being productive. And that's something I think in the quarantine and in life that we're starting to realize, that the notion of constant productivity is unhealthy.
It's toxic. And I am 100% like married to it. And I'm always trying to break that marriage. Yeah.
And so and a lot of my internalized ableism that I carry and I try to work on is that it is okay to ask for help when I need it. And to not be constantly proving that I am not disabled. I am disabled, and that's fine. Just like somebody else has brown hair, it's part of who I am, and it totally affects what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I have to be the one that says, this is where today my spoons are really low. Today I can only keep those glass balls in the air. My plastic ones are all in a corner, and they are going to sit there for the next week.
I really appreciated because I'm battling, I don't have a migraine, but I know it's coming. And I emailed you earlier and said, there's a 20% chance I will have to cancel. And you were super, super cool about saying, I understand if we have to cancel, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I did another podcast earlier, and the creator of that one is chronically ill. And she's like, I just can't do it today. And I was like, I get it. Low spoons are there's just no use in spinning our wheels that way when we're not going to create something that makes us feel good in the end.
For those people who might be listening who have never heard the spoon theory, can you just briefly explain it? Because I think it's brilliant.
I can try to. It's used in the chronically ill setting mostly. And the idea is that every person has a certain amount of spoons. And
when they wake up.
When they wake up in the morning, yeah. And so those of us who are either chronically ill or disabled just have fewer spoons.
We're allowed to say both now, according to Merriam-Webster last week.
Yes, but not according to my husband, who
corrects
it constantly when I do it. And I'm sorry, I'm a writer. I don't know words. I don't understand them. I don't know what to tell you. So those of us who have fewer, who just don't have the same amount of spoons, we just don't wake up with that many. And so our spoons get depleted. We use more of them, and they need to be washed a lot quicker than people who do not have chronic illness or a disability. I hear it mostly in the chronic illness community. And
Yeah.
I have a heart condition. I have cardiomyopathy as a result of the chemo I had 30 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
yay, chemo, the gift that keeps on giving.
Mm.
Um, and so I have to just, that's what the spoon theory is. I've also heard a good analogy of like a battery,
Yeah.
like a cell phone battery. And I'm like, so I am the cell phone that just got the iOS update, and now my battery drains a lot quicker.
Yeah,
That's
and the
just where,
spoons actually refer in the same. I like the battery maybe a little bit better because the spoons are like we use them as a spending term. Like you have to spend a
mm-hmm,
spoon to take a shower, and you might have to
mm-hmm,
spend a spoon to make breakfast and wash the dishes. So the
yeah,
battery makes more intuitive sense. I like that.
yeah. Ooh, sorry about that.
No worries.
I
No
kicked my
worries.
camera. So yeah, we run out of energy. We run out of spoons faster. And on the one hand, like the pandemic is terrible and I miss going out. I'm an extrovert. I miss seeing people. I miss being out in public. I miss writing in a Starbucks more
Oh,
than
me
almost
too.
anything.
Yeah.
And so, but on the other hand, like I've been able to do so many like virtual events, and
Yeah.
like I haven't, like if I travel, and traveling for me is complicated because I can't carry a suitcase. And so I have to figure out, okay, do I take my laptop or do I take all of my makeup? Like what's more, because of the
Right.
weight, because I have to
Right.
carry it all on my back. And there's just a lot, like yes, I can check my luggage, but I still have to get it off of the luggage rack.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of complications. And so like if I'm traveling, which I love to do, but it takes so much more logistics for me than it does somebody else. So when I went to ALA in 2018, my husband came with me just because I was like, I can't figure out how I'm going to navigate New Orleans on my own at this massive convention center. And thankfully, we're in a place that he could do that. And so, but I get that other writers are not. So I appreciate that now we have all of these virtual, like this is not new anymore, and that there's all this virtual stuff that people can do.
And
So
they understand
hopefully
how to
more,
do it now too.
yes.
It's great.
So hopefully more disabled and chronically ill writers can do these things.
I love that so much. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, and I absolutely love that. So you're launching this week. This is not on the list of questions, but do you like being with your publisher, Flux? I was just looking at
I do.
and they look awesome.
They've been, I mean, my editor, Mari, is first rate, Mari Kasserling. And Mikkel George did Brave Enough, and also is a writer and has some amazing books out. So Speak Easy, Speak Love by Mikkel George is a fabulous book.
What a great title.
Yeah, it's a Shakespeare retelling, As You Like It. It's I think.
Ooh.
But it's great, and it's set in the 20s. It's awesome, right? Yes.
Yeah, in the speakeasy.
Yes. And so, but I've been really they really supported me. They gave me great covers.
They gave you great covers, and they are a small independent press, so you don't have to be agented to submit to
You do not. You do not.
Noticed that. Yeah.
I was agented. I'm currently not. I'm going to go back into the query trenches with this heist novel. But my agent did sell both of those books for me, and they were great to work with. But I have several friends who have subbed to them as an independent publisher, and they give you an advance and all of the things that a good publisher should do.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, they've been great. Emily, who is the publicity person, is wonderful and super on top of things. She set up a great little Instagram blog tour for me for this book. And
I love publicists at independent publishers. They are so passionate.
She is a workhorse too, man. Like I just don't know how she does it. Like, I just don't, like, she is constantly working, I feel like. I mean, I'm sure she has a work-life balance, but
or maybe she doesn't. Some of us don't.
I mean, she answers all of my questions really quickly. And because I can't travel, I have a pre-order campaign going through 2 bookstores, one Quail Ridge Books in Raleigh, and then Brave and Kind Bookshop out of Decatur, Georgia. But I can't get to Georgia to sign the copies like I would have if if we did not have a pandemic. And
Right.
so Emily was on top of it. She got me book plates so that I can sign those and send them to Bunny at Brave and Kind. And then with my little pre-order gifts, the people who have pre-ordered from
Perfect.
there. Yeah, I mean, they were just, and I was like, I don't have to print out the book plates. That's awesome. Thanks.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Speaking of other people's books and publishers, what is the best book that you've read recently?
This is an older, it's not an older title. I think it came out like maybe last year, 2 years ago. It was Sick Kids in Love by Hannah Moskowitz.
I saw it. I never read it. It's good.
Oh, it's so good. Like, it was one of those books I just kind of smiled through it. Like,
Jumping onto my to be read pile.
it's so good. It was so sweet. And like, it features characters, obviously the title gives it away, that are chronically ill, and the way that she talks about it without being preachy is just mwah. Like, it's just so good. And it's obvious that Hannah gets it, the author, Hannah Moskowitz.
Yeah.
I call her by her first name like we're BFFs. We are not.
Yet.
But yet, I'm putting it out there. It's like she just gets it. And she talks in it, the main character, Ibby, has rheumatoid arthritis. And so things like walking are painful. And she counts her steps, like, okay, it's going to be this many steps to the staircase, and then I'm going to go this many steps up the stairs. And she lives in New York. So there's all this walking that happens. And she talks, and I'm like, that's exactly how I think. Like, that's it. And it was so good, the way that she just got that. And the boy in the book is named Sasha, and I love him. And he has a genetic disease that's very different from what Ibby has. And so there's a lot of this talk of being disabled, but not as disabled. And it's something I really resonated with, because like, I use crutches, but I'm not a wheelchair user. So I'm not, like when you're younger, well, I'm not that disabled, but they're all mobility aids. Or in the amputee community, I see it a lot with where using a prosthesis versus not. And I'm like, using a prosthesis does not make you able.
Right.
You're still disabled. It's a choice, and no choice is better or worse. And so I just loved the way that she talked about those things within it. It was so good.
It's so
good.
awesome to look at your face if anybody's watching on YouTube. Most people listen to the show, but some people will watch on YouTube, and you just like lit up like a star when you said the book. So that's amazing. Speaking of lighting up like a star and talking about like books, will you please tell us about Finding Balance and where we can find it and you out there? But give us a little. It's like gorgeous.
Finding Balance. My beautiful cover. You can find Finding Balance anywhere at Barnes and Noble, your local independent bookshop, bookshop.org, IndieBound, or if you want to order from my two favorite bookshops, it's Quail Ridge Books in Raleigh, North Carolina, or Brave and Kind Bookshop out of Atlanta, Georgia. They both ship, so feel free. Or Page 158 out of Wake Forest, North Carolina. We're really lucky here that we have a lot of great independent bookstores.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
We have Flyleaf in Chapel Hill. We have Regulator in Durham. Like, we have all of these great. So there's some plugs from some great independent bookstores.
I love that.
But Finding Balance, I don't know that I can ever sum it up succinctly, which is why I had to write a whole novel for it. It's about two teenagers, Jace Ellison and Mari Manos. And Jace and Mari met at cancer camp. They met at a camp called Camp Chemo, which is fictionalized, but it's the fictionalized version of Camp Sunshine out of Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia, which I spent many, many, many years as a camper and a counselor at, and still go as a volunteer. But so Jason Mari met at Camp Chemo, and they have what I call a flirtationship. Like, they flirt with each other all the time, but they only really ever see each other at camp. And so it comes as quite a shock when Mari walks or crutches into Jace's AP chemistry class at his very elite private school.
Love it.
In Atlanta. And he looks at her and says, "I don't know you." And she's like, yeah, I told you, he's not nice in the beginning. Gotta have a growth.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. It comes to find out that no one at Jace's school knows that he had leukemia as a preschooler, and he is his biggest fear is that coming out, is somebody finding out that he had leukemia. And Mari lives life as a one-legged girl. She walks around on crutches and doesn't know of she's never had the luxury of not telling people. I think it's Aaron Bowman who talks about minding your own story, your own life for your stories. And I mind my life for finding balance. And that I always felt like I had to explain to people why I had one leg. And I was never going to lie to them and be like, oh, it was a car accident whenever I had cancer. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And then I found out that my best friend, who we had been on treatment together, had never told anybody that she had leukemia. And I was like, wait, that's an option?
It would never have crossed your mind.
Wait, you get to do that? And so that's what the book is about. It's about these two characters, and Jace dealing with, Mari is all of a sudden at his school and in this circle with all of these people that he knows. And there's still an attraction there, and how are they going to deal with that?
That's awesome. I love that word, flirtationship, too. That's
flirtationship. It's my favorite word.
It's good.
Like, if I read from the book, I read where that's in there because it's my favorite one. I felt so smart that day.
That's awesome.
And so that's what the book is about. Like, and it's also, it's got, Mari has a really awesome family that's super supportive. She has 3 older brothers, and they are all fun in their own way. She's got, 2 that are extreme extroverts, and then there's one that's an introvert that happens to be dating her speech and debate teacher. Nope, that's wrong. He is not. The introverted one is not dating. He is dating who ends up being Mari's AP Chem tutor. I cried throughout chemistry. Like, I cried through that class. So Mari struggles with AP chemistry, and an homage to me going, I just don't understand. It's not my life, I promise, because I never had a Jace Ellison in my life.
But we do mine our lives for these kind of things.
But we do. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So,
thank you so much, Katie. It has been such a joy
to
talk to you. I'm so glad that my head cooperated, because I was like, no, I want to talk to her today.
It was super fun. Thanks so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And we will talk soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.